my bedroom.
Wow.
So this is very private space. You've asked
I
for...
can imagine. When I was just looking up where I should go in a search engine, the stuff that came up was all real estate listings and that this place was for sale. Mm-hmm. Is it for sale?
No, it's not now.
And how long have you been here?
This is a recent acquisition for us. No, I don't happen to put pictures on my nightstand.
But it's very formal. It's almost like walking into a rented property.
No, it's not rented property, I can assure you.
So this is where you live, this is your home?
Yes.
Hi again, everyone. We'll explain. It's 5 o'clock in the East, and what you just saw there were bald-faced lies told by former Republican congressional candidate Michelle Roosevelt Edwards in an interview there with a TV reporter from Iceland. They might have been merely mind-blowing as a human experiment in the audacity to commit fraud, but that's not why we're showing them to you. There's some wild new investigative reporting in today's Washington Post about that woman who lies in that clip about that Virginia estate belonging to her. It does not. The Post reports that the estate is listed as the headquarters for a firm she runs called the Institute for Good Governance, but it's not. There's no good governance here. That home is not and was not owned by her or any of her businesses. Here's why the Edwards fraudster matters in the bigger story of the fraud perpetuated on the American people by the disgraced ex-president. That thing she runs, the Institute for Good Governance, helped spread one of the most outlandish conspiracy theories of all about how the ex-president and his aides claimed the 2020 election was rigged. It's the conspiracy theory involving Italy and satellites. From the Post, blockbuster new piece of reporting, quote, late last December, as President Trump pressed senior officials to find proof of election fraud, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows emailed Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen a letter detailing an outlandish theory of how an Italian defense contractor had conspired with U.S. intelligence to rig the 2020 presidential contest. According to the conspiracy theory known as Italygate, people working for the Italian defense contractor, in coordination with senior CIA officials, used military satellites to switch votes from Trump to Joe Biden and swing the result of the election. That letter Meadows forwarded was sent under the letterhead of a company that woman, Edwards, leads. And in January, the Institute for Good Governance released another statement pushing her Italygate conspiracy. It's a claim not grounded in a single fact, as the Post reveals that even the Italian reporter whose piece helped launch the theory now admits it was never real. Quote, in an email to the Post, the reporter said Italygate was fake news, a conspiracy theory, a poison chalice. But the damage of Italygate and other big lie conspiracies has already been done, seen in their enduring influence. President election was over half a year ago, and still a majority of Republicans and a quarter of all Americans believe the ex-president is their true leader. That's according to a Reuters Ipsos poll. Poll by Politico Morning Consult finds nearly 3 in 10 Republicans believe the disgraced ex-president will somehow be reinstated this year. Lies that a frightening portion of America still believes, all because the disgraced ex-president cannot accept his own loss. Which brings us to top former cybersecurity official Chris Krebs, who declared the 2020 election the most secure election in this country's history. In response to the Post's great investigative report on Italygate this weekend, he tweeted this: more great reporting on 2020 conspiracies. We're only scratching the surface of the grift and insanity that attempted to overturn an election and upend democracy. And for what? Power? Access? Money? What a shameful chapter in American history. Protect 2020. The grifter squatting in a Virginia mansion to help push the big lie and election conspiracy theories is where we start this hour with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Ashley Parker's here, Washington Post White House bureau chief, and lucky for us, an MSNBC political analyst. Also joining us, MSNBC national security analyst Frank Figliuzzi, former assistant director of counterintelligence at the FBI, host of the Bureau podcast. And Matthew Dowd is here, political strategist and founder of Country Over Party. Ashley, I'm going to come to you with some more of this really wild and important reporting about how a grifter pushes something that ends up on the desk of America's Attorney General. But I want to start with Matthew Dowd in this bigger frame of the toxic nature of all these conspiracy theories. And we're covering them many months after they twisted our government into knots, that the Attorney General of the United States, Jeffrey Rosen, was on the receiving end of what sounds like bat bleep crazy stuff. As I read it, I feel like I'm reading something insane. But it's important to know that the President of the United States and his Chief of Staff put this in front of the Attorney General at the same time that an insurrection was being planned against the U.S. Capitol. It gets to the point of a dereliction of duty, doesn't it, Matt?
Well, I think it gets to the point that the president, and we've known this, but as obviously we get more and more information, he's a clear and present danger to the republic that we live in, to our democracy, and we've seen it unfold. Now, we've had conspiracy theories in many different ways, as everybody knows, in United States history. We had the faked moon landing and Elvis sightings and whatever else. There's been conspiracy theories that I have, but we've never had a situation where conspiracy theories were used to basically overthrow an election. That's what we have here. And we're adopted, I think most significantly and most worrisome, and this is why we continue to deal with this today, even though former President Trump sits in Mar-a-Lago and spews out all kinds of crazy things, is that one of the two legacy political parties, the GOP, has basically adopted this, and it refuses to refute it. And so everything in the aftermath of that, why do we need to do election laws? Because of conspiracy theories that were believed by a majority of their voters. Why do we doing any sort of other thing? It's all in response to this conspiracy theories. And so, yes, we can laugh it off, but really it's a real life, in my view, sort of bizarre Tom Clancy novel that we have here, where the president, it's not that there's an attack on the former president, it's the former president is attacking our system of government and our democracy, and he has enablers all over the country.
You know, Matt, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, and the other governing party is the Democratic Party, the only one interested in actively preserving our democracy. And I know we see sort of the urgency the same way, and we don't always see it reflected in that party's leaders. But I wonder if sort of taking all of this as the cancer that you cut out by limited filibuster reform, and you just take all the legislation that sprung out of the lie. You take the failure to appoint a bipartisan commission to investigate the insurrection. You take federal voting rights legislation, everything that is just predicated on BS, and you say filibuster is really important, but anything that's rooted in a lie is a cancer on our democracy. And for those pieces of legislation, we're going to suspend the filibuster. Is that an appropriate and limited and restrained way to proceed?
I would say when the democracy is at stake, which I fundamentally believe it is, when your democracy is at stake, basically saying I'm going to depend on old traditions that were applied in a different time. And it's like the continued conversation in the midst of this about bipartisanship. Bipartisanship is only possible when you have a partner in the bipartisan relationship that is trustworthy, that believes in the same set of values that you do, that might have a different approach, but is willing to look at things as facts and data and response, and believes in their heart that the democracy and the republic we have is the most important thing. That partner doesn't exist for the Democrats. And so every time somebody says, well, what about the filibuster, or what about this? What they're basically saying is democracy is not as important as some old rule that applied in a time long gone by that no longer works. And to me, this is obviously something that happens at the federal level, Nicole, but this is also a battle that has to be raised and continue to done at the state level. Because even if we solve a lot of the problems at the federal level, we have a series of leaders, GOP leaders, and I'm in Texas, and especially in places like Texas, the second largest state in our country, in the union, that push all sorts of conspiracy theories on a lot of different things in order to get what they want. And until we rid the House, I called this black mold before, we have a black mold problem. And until all Democrats say you can't ignore black mold, you have to rid yourself of black mold in order to solve the problem, the GOP as a party is fundamentally off track of where American democracy is. And until people begin to understand that, from the Joe Manchins to the Senator Sinemas to everybody else, there is no way we can solve and rid ourselves of this cancer that has become malignant in America.
You know, Frank, I want to come to you. As soon as Matt said clear and present danger, I thought of years now of conversations we've had questioning the disgraced ex-president and his circle's loyalties.